Okay, so now we're going to take a look at our timesheet module. Timesheet is pretty much as it sounds. It's a sheet that your users are going to put in their time themselves manually. They can do this anytime that they want, every day, at the end of the week, whatever the case may be, as long as they do it before the timesheet is considered overdue. As you see here, I have three sort of demo users already created, and they all have some really funny names. And the reason why is because we do have three different templates of our timesheet for you to use. So we have the detailed one that detailed Darren here has, and then we have a simple format that simple Sarah is going to be using, and then we have an advanced one for advanced Aaron here. So I will be able to show you all three to kind of give you an overview of what's the difference between these three templates and when you should be using them. So first we'll take a look at the detailed one, and the detailed one can either be just the time in, time out, or you can have it doubled up in this way. What would be the reason to have it doubled up with morning and afternoon? This would be if you want to keep track of your user's time similar to a clock in, clock out situation where users would pick from this drop down menu when they came in, when they left right before going, for example, to lunch, when they came back from lunch, and when they left at the end of their shift. So it goes by increments of 5 minutes. So if you want, absolute accuracy, this might not be the one for you. But if you just want something that will, capture an overview glimpse of time worked and exclude that lunch, you can use this format right here. Or in account settings, you can also remove the afternoon and just have like, hey, when did they come in and when did they leave? This one is very, very, very simple, very easy to use, and a lot of people will use this in lieu of the time clock module. And similarly to the time cards in time clock, you're going to have your regular hours, you're going to have your paid leave and your unpaid leave, and this information will be taken from time off. If you have the time off module, then that info will get fed in there. So any vacation, any, a day off taken without pay, or for instance, it's Christmas, so on the 25th, your offices are closed. If you do have the time off module, then all that info will feed into timesheet and will show up here as either paid or unpaid. If you set an overtime rule for your user, you will see that here in this OT column. So if, for instance, we state that if they work more than 8 hours in a day, it's going to be considered overtime. If I were to work 9 hours, I would have 8 regular, 1 OT. You can also set a rule where it's X amount of hours per week. So for instance, if they go over 40 hours in a week, it's considered overtime. Same situation, you would have the overtime here in this column, and then the regular hours with your total. There's these little bubbles here on every single day, and all of our timesheets have this option where you can leave a comment. So if, for instance, I was supposed to come in at 8 in the morning, but I came in at 9, and I maybe want to remind my manager that I came in late because from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., I had a doctor's appointment. So I might, put that in there just as a reminder that the reason why I came in late is because from 8 to 9, I was at the doctor's. And it will show up here as a daily comment. It's showing Monday, the 20th. There's a comment that was left. Just, anything that you want to mention or a reason for doing overtime, really anything the user wants to let their manager know, they can go ahead and put it here for the actual day. And if there's a comment that they want to leave for the entire time card as a whole, they can put it here. Also, this comment box is more often used for situations where I send in my time card for approval, I forgot to add in my Friday, or I left early on Friday and I put it at, 4. Maybe my manager might send it back with leaving me a comment here saying, hey, your Friday is not correct. Can you fix it? And then that would be just a nice quick way for me to say, well, why was it rejected? Oh, here's the comment. So we're offering communication, we're offering transparency between, your users, their time worked, We're trying to keep things as clear as possible for payroll as well. And speaking of payroll, all time cards in time clock or timesheets in timesheet, they can be exported as a CSV, as a PDF as well, but we all know that accounting much prefers that Excel spreadsheet. So just keep that in mind if you want to send that over to them. We're going to go back to the timesheets, and I'm going to show you the second one on our list, which is the simple version. So we just put in our hours worked. I work 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, and that's it. So I got my 40 hours. If, for instance, on Friday I had to stay late, we had a late meeting, I did 10 hours. My rule states that I work 40 hours a week. Anything over that is overtime. So as you can see, we do have that 2 hours of overtime here. And anything paid leave or unpaid leave, as the other timesheet template, it's going to be pulling that from time off. So I did 2 hours here. I could actually leave a comment, stayed late for meeting, and then save. And then now this Friday where I did a 10-hour shift, I left a comment explaining why, or it might just be a reminder. So I'm not really going to focus too much more on the simple version because, as the name would imply, it's pretty simple. And now let's just head over to the last one, which is really the most special one in the batch. And this is the advanced version. And I don't know if you noticed, but on the left-hand side of your screen here, you do have this category called advanced. And then you have modules, clients, projects, tasks, task statuses, and priorities. And this will only appear for you if you choose to use this advanced um, timesheet format. Because if you choose to use this format, then there is a little bit more, elbow grease, if you will, that goes into it, where you will have to set up all of these different categories. And the reason is, if you have users or if you're an organization where not only do you need to keep track of time worked in a day, but you also want to keep track of the time where it was worked. So, for instance, if you're a tech company and you want to keep track of where, what project the person was working on, this is for you. Law firms, nonprofit organizations often use this format to keep track of what grant they're using to pay out their employees. Schools will also use this version a lot as well. And I think ours is set up more as like quite obviously as like a tech company situation, but this can always be amended to, fit your needs. So when someone goes to add in a time, they're going to have to pick a client. So they can pick just, if it's just one, they'll pick the one, or they'll have options. They'll pick their project, they'll pick their task, and then they'll pick their module. So for instance, let's say I was working in the design department of this project. This is the day, and I did 4 hours working there. And then I might even give a brief example um, of what exactly I did during those 4 hours, and then I'll hit save. So now I've entered my first entry for Tuesday, and then you can see it here. But then I'm going to add in another, let's say, 4 hours. And instead of design, I worked in Q&A. And I'll say, that I was testing new feature. So now I have that I was testing a new feature, that I was helping design, the UI for the project. So I did 4 and 4 on January 1, which is a total of 8, but you'll be able to see that here. As I mentioned before with the paid leave, here we see that in the US it was Martin Luther King Day on Monday, and this user is part of the American office. So he had Monday off for Martin Luther King Day. And because this person only works part-time, we set up in timesheets under the business settings that they don't get a full 8-hour day. They only get paid 4 hours for stat holidays because they only work part-time. They only work 3 days a week. So this is also something that you can set up, how many hours they're meant to be paid out when a stat holiday occurs. But as you can see, this is taking that information from time off. And again, as always, there's the ability to leave a comment on the overall time card. The comments on the actual punch, you'll just leave it here in the description. And when you need to know exactly how many hours were worked for a specific job, for instance, you can come here to report and look at time entries. And I want to see the time entries that were done for only the design module, let's say. So I'm looking up the design module and I can see that during this date range, oh, this is how many hours were spent on that aspect of our duties. Now, obviously, I unfortunately don't have a lot of data in here, but you can imagine that if you were to have multiple users working in design, you can have all of the entries, and then you could even filter it down by project, and you could filter it down by client, you could filter it down by user. So you could essentially have information in every single one of these boxes to kind of pinpoint exactly how many hours did user X work last week on design for project A for client B. So this is really a wonderful way to be able to exactly know where those hours were spent, if they're billable, if you have to bill your client for that or not, and so on and so forth. So with that said, that's pretty much all we need to know about Timesheet. Again, Timesheet will have a very wonderful wizard when you first start it up. So it will walk you through the steps that you need to do to set yourself up. However, as always, if you come to a roadblock, if there's any confusion, especially with setting up that advanced timesheet format, please do reach out. support@purelyhr.com. Again, that's support@purelyhr.com. We can answer you via email, phone, or even set up a one-on-one call to give you some help if needed. And with that, that's it for Timesheet. Thank you for watching.